Right now, across multiple regions in Nigeria, especially in the northwest and north-central, there is a growing sense that something fundamental is changing. Not in a dramatic, overnight way that dominates headlines instantly, but in a slow, unsettling pattern that people can feel in their daily lives. The frequency of attacks appears to be increasing, the sense of safety is becoming more fragile, and the conversations among citizens are shifting from curiosity to concern. Nigerians are no longer simply asking, "What is happening?" Instead, a more serious and deeper question is emerging. Is the system still holding, or is it beginning to crack under pressure? This shift in public mindset is critical. It marks the transition from a localized security issue to a broader national concern. When insecurity is perceived across multiple regions, it stops being an isolated problem and starts to feel like a structural one. This is not just another update in the news cycle. It is a pattern, one that suggests rising insecurity, increasing strain on military capacity, and a growing perception that something deeper within the system may not be functioning as effectively as expected. And when a country begins to feel unsafe not just in specific hotspots but across wider areas, it signals a moment that demands attention at the highest levels. This is how national turning points often begin, not with a single event, but with a pattern that becomes impossible to ignore. To fully understand the gravity of this moment, it is important to recognize one fundamental principle: security is the foundation upon which every functioning nation is built. When that foundation is stable, everything else, economic growth, political stability, public confidence, and daily life, has the space to operate effectively. But when that foundation begins to weaken, even slightly, the effects ripple outward across every sector of society. In Nigeria, insecurity is not a new phenomenon. Different regions have experienced various forms of conflict over the years, including insurgency, banditry, kidnappings, and communal tensions. However, what distinguishes the current moment is not just the existence of these challenges, but the perception that they may be escalating in complexity and frequency. Many Nigerians are beginning to feel that attacks are becoming more coordinated, responses may not always be as swift or visible as expected, and outcomes are increasingly unpredictable. It is this unpredictability that amplifies fear. People can adapt to known risks, but uncertainty creates a deeper psychological impact. When citizens cannot anticipate where or when the next incident might occur, the sense of vulnerability expands beyond affected areas and becomes a national sentiment. This is how insecurity evolves from a regional challenge into a broader issue that affects confidence in the entire system. Looking more closely at the situation on the ground, several consistent patterns are emerging that demand attention. Reports from affected regions indicate repeated disruptions to community life, particularly in rural areas where agriculture and local economies are heavily dependent on stability. Movement has become more cautious, and daily routines are increasingly shaped by considerations of safety. However, the most significant concern is not just the incidents themselves, but the pattern behind them. Observers and citizens alike are beginning to ask critical questions. Why do similar incidents seem to occur in cycles? Why does the response sometimes appear reactive rather than proactive? Is the current intelligence framework adapting quickly enough to evolving threats? These are complex questions without simple answers, but they are essential for understanding the broader situation. When patterns repeat over time, they create a perception that something within the system may require urgent improvement. In a country known for resilience, it takes sustained pressure for such questions to move from private conversations into public discourse. The fact that they are now being asked more openly suggests a shift in how the situation is being perceived by the population. Beneath the surface of visible events lies a deeper layer of institutional pressure. This is not only about the presence of insecurity but about how systems are responding to it. One key dynamic is the balance between military capacity and the evolving nature of threats. Security forces are tasked with addressing multiple challenges across different regions simultaneously, which can create operational strain. At the same time, threat actors are perceived to be adapting. changing tactics, locations, and methods in ways that require continuous adjustment. This creates a scenario where response systems must evolve rapidly to keep pace. Another important factor is coordination. Effective security management depends heavily on the alignment of intelligence systems, the timely flow of information, and the ability to act on that information proactively. Even the perception of gaps in coordination can influence public confidence. Beyond operational considerations, security is also deeply connected to governance. Every security challenge raises broader questions about leadership priorities, resource allocation, and accountability. When clear answers are not readily visible, narratives begin to form, sometimes based on facts, sometimes on perception, but always influential in shaping public opinion. These hidden dynamics are what transform a security issue into a broader national conversation about stability and direction. The public response to the current situation reveals a complex emotional landscape. On the streets, there is a sense of fatigue. Many Nigerians express a simple desire for stability and peace. Conversations often reflect exhaustion rather than panic. A quiet acknowledgement that the situation has become too frequent to ignore but too persistent to react to with constant alarm. This fatigue is significant because it indicates a normalization of pressure, which can have long-term implications for societal resilience. At the same time, the digital space tells a more intense story. Online platforms are filled with expressions of frustration, concern, and demands for accountability. Questions about long-term strategy, effectiveness of responses, and future direction are becoming more common. There is also a layer of humor, characteristic of Nigerian culture, that surfaces even in serious situations. Jokes about everyday struggles often carry deeper meaning, reflecting both resilience and underlying concern. Humor, in this context, becomes a coping mechanism, a way to process uncertainty while maintaining a sense of normalcy. However, beneath the humor lies a clear message. People are paying attention, and they are seeking reassurance that the situation is being addressed effectively. As insecurity becomes more visible, its political implications grow more significant. Security is one of the most critical measures by which leadership is evaluated, and sustained challenges in this area can influence public perception in profound ways. When citizens feel unsafe, trust in institutions can decline, and confidence in governance may weaken. This creates an environment where criticism becomes more pronounced and political stakes increase. In the context of future elections, security is likely to play a central role in shaping voter priorities. People tend to remember how safe they felt during specific periods, and that memory can influence political decisions. Additionally, insecurity can affect regional dynamics, sometimes intensifying existing tensions or creating new areas of sensitivity. Another key factor is the power of narrative. In politics, perception often carries as much weight as reality. If a narrative takes hold that conditions are deteriorating, it can spread rapidly, influencing public opinion regardless of official statements. This makes communication, transparency, and visible action critical components of managing not just the situation itself but also how it is perceived. Looking ahead, several potential scenarios could shape the trajectory of this situation. One possibility is stabilization, achieved through improved coordination, enhanced intelligence alignment, and visible results that rebuild public confidence. In such a scenario, the current concerns could be addressed effectively, and the narrative could shift toward recovery and resilience. Another possibility is continued pressure. where patterns persist and public frustration grows. This scenario carries higher risks, as it could lead to increased tension, deeper skepticism, and more pronounced political consequences. There is also the potential for this moment to act as a catalyst for change. Crises often force reassessment and adaptation, leading to structural improvements that might not have occurred otherwise. Whether this moment becomes a turning point depends largely on the responses that follow. History shows that nations rarely reach critical breaking points suddenly. Instead, they move toward them gradually, through a series of developments that accumulate over time. Recognizing these patterns early provides an opportunity to influence the outcome. What is unfolding in Nigeria today is more than a temporary phase. It represents a test of systems, leadership, and national resilience. The most important question is not whether insecurity exists. That is already clear. The real question is how close the country is to a point where the situation evolves into something broader, affecting confidence, stability, and long-term direction. If current patterns continue without visible improvement, the impact will extend beyond specific regions and begin to influence the overall trajectory of the nation. This is why moments like this are critical. They offer both a warning and an opportunity, a chance to address underlying issues before they escalate further. For observers, citizens, and decision-makers alike, the focus now is not just on understanding what is happening, but on determining what comes next. If you want more deep, clear, and intelligent breakdowns of critical issues shaping Nigeria, subscribe. Like this video. Share your perspective in the comments. Do you believe this is a turning point? Or a situation that will stabilize? Because in Nigeria, security is not just policy. It is the foundation of everything.